Even after the price reduction and the recently announced partnership with Apple, it seems like the PSVR 2 just can't catch a break. And apparently it can't catch a beat either. It's Sunday, so let's get sensational. I'm Mike, and I'm back to talk about the gaming news. Just like the PSVR 2 is back in the news again for some reason. So last week we talked about Apple adding support for the PSVR 2 controllers, which I think is a win for both companies. But this week it looks like the platform is losing a major game. So Beats Games, the makers of Beat Saber, announced that they're dropping support for Beat Saber on the PSVR 1 and PSVR 2. Basically, they're not going to be releasing any new songs for the PS5 and PS4 version of the game, and multiplayer support will end on January 21st of next year. Now the game will still be available and you can still buy the songs that are currently there, but basically they're just not going to be adding any new songs after this point. This isn't going to affect the PC or the Quest versions of the game, it's only the PSVR versions of the game. Now Beats Games didn't say why they're doing this, but if I had to guess, it's probably because of the install base on PlayStation. I'm guessing there's just not enough people where it's worth maintaining on that platform. Personally, as someone who's had multiple VR headsets and has been playing VR games since 2016, Beat Saber is still one of the biggest VR titles. It's the one that I always drop back in every now and then just to play for fun. So it's a big deal that it's not getting support any longer on the PSVR headsets. I picked up a PSVR 2 last year and I will say it kind of felt like a dead platform. I got it because they had announced the PC support and it was the first time they did a major discount on it before they did the permanent price drop. And I really feel like the hardware is good, but the games available for the PS5 just felt very limited, and it doesn't feel like Sony is putting that much effort into it. I think launching it at $550, which was more expensive than the PS5 itself, it was just kind of doomed from the start. Just like people trying to play pirated games on the Switch 2. So Nintendo has started early on cracking down on piracy on the Switch 2. The first run of the Switch 1 hardware had a vulnerability that made it pretty easy to crack. Not that I would personally know. So piracy on their previous system became a problem for them pretty quickly. I also want to be clear that when I'm saying piracy, that I mean piracy as in people playing games that they didn't pay for, and not people dumping their own games to play on other platforms like PC or on their Switch or whatever. I personally don't consider that to be piracy. But during the Switch 1's life cycle, there were these flash cards which you could store Switch games on and play them on a console. And since the Switch 2 is backwards compatible, some people decided to try these cards in the Switch 2, which probably wasn't the best idea. So people trying to load games from these MIG cards have found that their systems are being banned from online services. This doesn't affect their account, it only seems like a system level ban, so they could buy another console in the future and use online services. But yeah, it sounds like it's not worth trying, especially on a new system that's hard to find right now. So yeah, if you have one of those MIG cards, maybe don't use it on the Switch 2. Also be wary if you see some weirdly cheap Switch 2s on Facebook or on eBay, because they may be banned from online services. You may also want to avoid overusing the rumble feature on the Switch 2 as well. So it's being reported that the Switch 2 will temporarily shut off HD rumble if it's in use for too long. There doesn't seem to be a reason given as to why it does this, but the speculation is it may be doing this to save battery life. This seems to be temporary and the rumble starts working again quickly, but it is weird because they didn't do this with the Switch 1. Now I am still working on a review for the Switch 2, but I have personally run into this. I was playing Luminous Remastered, which vibrates the controllers to the beat of the songs, and about 30 minutes in, I started getting the messages on the screen that the rumble was being shut off due to how much it was being used. I just kept playing. I played it for about 30 more minutes, and the rumble never actually stopped for me, but I thought it was weird, especially because it's a game that heavily uses rumble, so you would think that they would have accounted for this in some way. Nintendo hasn't made a statement about it just yet, so we'll see if this is something they'll address or change in the future, like reducing the intensity of the rumble for a short period instead of just shutting it off altogether. But you know who else may need to clarify some of their messaging? Xbox with their recent announcement. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, final story. So last week we talked about the Asus Xbox handheld and the speculation that the next Xbox could just be a PC with Xbox branding. Well, Microsoft made an announcement that they're continuing their partnership with AMD for their next generation of consoles, and some of the wording in that announcement kind of hinted at them maybe doing more of these type of ROG or collaboration type handhelds and possibly even systems. So Xbox President Sarah Bond released a 1-minute video to announce their partnership with AMD. And during the video, she mentions that the next generation of Xbox will use AMD chips for their consoles and handhelds, and everything will be backwards compatible. Then towards the end of the video, she mentions that they're working closely with the Windows team to make sure that Windows is the #1 platform for gaming. So like we talked about last week, they're making the streamlined version of Windows for the ROG Xbox Ally, still terrible name. So it's feasible that they could just use this version of Windows for their next Xbox and potentially their future handhelds, whether they decide to make them themselves or have another company make them. It could also be a scenario where they do their own console and they do their own handheld, but they also allow more licensed options out there as well at different price points. Personally, I think this is more exciting, and I'm curious to see what their strategy is for the next generation. I feel like for the last 2 generations that Microsoft and Sony have basically made the same consoles in different shapes. So I'm all for having 3 unique consoles that offer 3 completely different experiences, and also having one that bridges the gap more between PC and console and makes it more accessible to people who haven't gotten into PC gaming yet. But let me know what you think down below in the comments. Would you rather see Xbox do another traditional console, or would you rather see this PC type hybrid console that runs a full version of Windows and you could do a bunch of other stuff with? Again, let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell notification button thing to be notified when I drop a video or a live stream. And always do at least 2 things at the same time.